Today we're going to look at the 2 to 4 player strategy game by Game Brewer, Trolls and Princesses. Now, first, I'm going to talk about this game's profile, the characteristics of this game that may help you identify whether or not this is the kind of game that you'll like, and then ultimately I'll share with you my final thoughts on the game, which boil down to 2 things that I really love about this game and find unique, and 2 criticisms about the game that I'll also share with you. For this review, I'm going to skip the overview of the rules. If you're completely unfamiliar with the game, you can always watch my 60-second short where I go over the highlights, but for now, I'll assume that you're somewhat familiar with the game, and we'll talk about how I would analyze this game's profile first. Now, if you're familiar with my channel, this is going to be a little different because I'm kind of moving my formula around a little bit. I'm going to use the attributes of design, interaction, and artistry, as well as strategy and complexity. So the way I see the game's design is really, is the game design motivated by its theme, or is it motivated by its mechanics? And the thing with Trolls and Princesses is I think this is a game that started with a great idea for game mechanics, and then the theme was added to that. So I don't think this is a very highly thematically motivated game, although I really do like the theme. I think it's cool that you get to be the trolls for once. Rather than, the good guys who are always killing the trolls, you get to be the trolls that steal the princesses and steal the humans, and I think that's cool, but make no mistake, this is still a very mechanically motivated game. For interaction, the thing about this game that's really special is that when you are counting up your action points, the actions that are available to you are augmented by other players' position of their trolls as well. Their trolls count towards your actions when you're moving out in the village. Now, that makes this game really interesting because based on what the players have done before you, you might be able to take a bell or kidnap a princess, which you weren't able to do previously, and your opponents are what enabled you to do it. Or, alternatively, maybe you could have been planning on doing something, but then the person right before you takes the village action, they clear all their trolls, and suddenly you're left with far fewer AP than you were expecting. In any case, watching what other players are doing and trying to anticipate how many action points you're going to be able to use, or how you can mess up somebody else's plan by removing your trolls from a situation, really make this especially interactive game for the kind of Euro game that it is. So this is higher towards the interactive rather than being more isolated, which also is something I really like about the game. For artistry, there's really 2 things that really stand out in my opinion. One is the artwork on the King's Task card. I think that those are very well done and they tie into the rest of the game's art very well, and they give the game a lot of character. I also really enjoy the wooden figures, the little troll figures, the human figures, and the changeling figures. I think that those are really fun to work with, and those are good quality. The rest of the game is more functional. All of the tiles, there's not a lot of artwork on there, but rather it's symbols to clearly represent what the tiles are for. So I would say that the artistry of this game is somewhere between being restrained and being extravagant. For strategy, you're going to hear me talk about this a little bit more in depth when I tell you one of my criticisms of the game. But what it comes down to really is that I kind of expected this to be a little bit more strategic than it is because of the degree of luck involved when it comes to that tile market. You can always use one action point to refresh the tiles or refresh the troll cards, and sometimes you can use that action point and just get junk. You're not getting what you're looking for, and then that's just bad luck. Or sometimes you can refresh the tiles and then lo and behold, there's a scoring tile that just plays perfectly into everything else that you're doing. And of course you're going to take it. And that's not really your skill. That's just because you refreshed and you got lucky or you got unlucky. That is present in all of these games that I've played by Game Brewer. And, it makes the game a little bit more relaxed. I don't take it as seriously as something that, is a bit of a heavier Euro game, but the strategy just isn't as high as I would anticipate. There is quite a great deal of luck, at least when it comes to those tiles. For complexity, there's so many different things that you can do on your game. So when you're teaching the rules, it takes a long time to go over all of the actions and how everything gets scored. And so that kind of adds to the complexity. But then really, as you're playing the game, the moves seem pretty clear. There aren't like so many variables to consider. Really what it comes down to is whether or not your opponents have opened up a great space in the village where you can perform an action, or if you have to utilize your action points in your own player board. And that's really what you're going to look for from turn to turn. And that really aids this game so that you don't get too bogged down by analysis paralysis. So I think it's about medium level complexity, and that's a really nice feeling for a game that has so much going on. So if you look at that profile, this is a well-balanced medium weight Euro game, and there's wide appeal for that. But the two things that I love most about the game, number one being the degree of interaction for a game like this, and how much your choices influence other players, and how engaging that can be to try to figure out ways to mess up other players' plans or utilize what another player has opened up for you. The second thing I really enjoy is the round cards that you're playing from turn to turn, because it gives you a little bit of clarity of where you're going to be using that king troll. And the king troll, of course, gives an extra action point. And at the same time, you know exactly how long the game is going to last, and you have a projection on how you're going to use your action points. That's really well done in this game. And it's one of my favorite features. There are only two criticisms I have for the game, and that's saying something, because often I can think of much more. This is just a really well-structured game. But I kind of alluded to one earlier when I talked about strategy. I really don't like it when you can refresh a tile or card market, and then bad luck or good luck can just really hit a player disproportionately. I wish I never saw that in games. It's present in this game. It reduces the level of strategy for the game. And that is what it is. It makes the game a little bit lighter, which I think is probably going to appeal to some people. It doesn't appeal as much to me. And the second thing that is a criticism, but it's very minor, and that is I was initially a little bit more excited about this game's theme, being trolls, stealing, kidnapping princesses and humans. I thought that was very cool, but at the end of the day, this is really just a tile placing Euro game with a lot of abstract scoring, and this is not extremely motivated by the theme, which is a little disappointing when I got excited by it. But nevertheless, it's still a really fun game. Those two criticisms are both very light. I enjoy this immensely, actually, and it's not too heavy. So that's my thoughts on Trolls and Princesses, and that is my new structure of rating the game, which I am testing out. Now, this whole thing about using a profile to describe what a game's characteristics are, this is something I'm very actively discussing on my Discord chat room, which you can get into when you become a Patreon member. If you are enjoying my reviews and you'd like to become a patron, you can find information about that in the description below. But a special thank you to those of you who are patrons of my channel, and for making this whole thing possible, and for also being a backboard that I can bounce these ideas off of. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. I will see you next time.